Hello, welcome to my channel. This is Opal Unicorn, otherwise known as Laura Castellanos Dabb, and I have a video series that may or may not be popular, but I felt it was important to do this for myself and to document my life and myself as a survivor of psychological warfare from my mother, who experienced PTSD and training from the war in Cuba during the Soviet Union, and how that helped me to become an artist and a psychic. And but more than that, it's also to help other psychics and anybody who may have gone through similar abuse and may or may not have realized that it was a form of torture, and that it's not just a toxic family system. When we talk about scapegoating and how some families use scapegoating for different things, to abuse family members, but taking scapegoat as the original concept, when you're using the term as how the old villagers and our ancestors used the term. So a scapegoat was a ritual goat that was used as a sacrifice for magic rituals, to take the sins and the sacrifice for the village in magic rituals and rites in order to bring, appease the gods, if you will. So when we use the word today, we sometimes forget the original meaning of that term and how the actual original meaning is much more relevant to today's term than we know. And if you, like myself, are a self-identifying witch, there are certain things that are also correlated with the community of what we would call witches or witchcraft, and how that might have to do with ritual abuse. And we go again to scapegoating as a sacrifice. So there's a few books that I wanted to reference in this series from the beginning. This one is one of my favorite books that helped me through a lot of what I've gone through, called Ritual Abuse and Mind Control, The Manipulation of Attachment Needs. What's great about this book is that it's a psychologist and therapist who is English, and he has certain clients that end up being in a group of ritual abuse and mind control, in families where sacrifice and magic and ritual was part of the ethics and the belief systems, and different forms of psychological warfare were used on these children to separate and give them different personalities, different than, or maybe possibly connected to, DID, or dissociative identity disorder. A practical guide to complex PTSD, A compassionate strategy to begin healing from childhood trauma. This is also a really good book, even though really dark, about ritual sacrifice in family systems. White Witch in a Black Robe, a true story about criminal mind control. And one of the most incredible philosophers and theories that I've come across, The Courage to be Disliked, a Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and achieve real happiness. Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga wrote it, but it's also by Adler, the cohort to Freud and Carl Jung, who kind of goes underneath the radar, and his theories and his philosophies and what they're based off of that have kind of gone off the map, but can go back to Greek philosophy as well. And the thing I love about this book is that it helps you realize that the only way we evolve as humans is to do the things that gnaw away at us, no matter the cost or price, because it's almost like the only way out is through. And for example, if you are always dreaming and saying that you want to be an artist or a painter, but you never actually pick up the brush often, and you never really pick up the pen or pencil and the notepad very often. And so, because you're afraid of making a mistake. So you never really become an artist, and you never really truly advance as an artist, but you also don't know if you'd be a good artist or not, because you never actually put any time and skill. So you really don't know whether you would have been a good artist or not. But in your mind, you have kept the theory and the idea, God, I would have been a good artist if I had just put my mind to it. But the truth is, you didn't put your mind to it. So you actually don't know if you would have been a good artist or not. So that theory or idea is keeping rent-free space in your mind, right? The idea that you could have been an artist, but you didn't put the time in, and that guilt or that feeling that you didn't achieve something that you could have achieved if you had done X, Y, Z. Why I like this book is because it gives you ownership to your Adler's philosophy, gives you ownership to your own mistakes, gives you ownership to the things that you haven't done yet and the dreams that you haven't achieved, because you either actually aren't good at that or aren't as good at that as you thought you were in your dream. When you actually go through it, you'll find out whether you were or not. The fear of finding out is sometimes more powerful and keeps us in a state of homeostasis, or the antithesis to homeostasis, some type of static, lack of evolution in our spirit growth, in our soul growth, because we're afraid to find out whether we are X, Y, and Z. It's important to know, you know what? It's okay, I'm shit at this, but I still like it. That's fine too. We don't have to be the best singers just because we like to sing karaoke. You can still enjoy that. And that's also a thing. It's like, go ahead and do the thing that you have a dream of being amazing at. Maybe you're not that amazing pop singer that you thought you were. And maybe you're tone deaf when you go up there and sing, but you went up there and you found out, and then if you can have a good laugh about it, then you're being more honest to yourself about your limitations and who you are. And you're not blaming it so much on the exterior environment around you, but you're looking within yourself to what you can do, what you have control of doing in your own life. So it's very self-empowering. And as survivors of a lot of different types of spiritual ritual abuse and mind control, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, I find Adler's philosophies to have been very, very, very healing for me on my journey. So those are the 4 books that I recommend for you all. And go ahead and check those out as footnotes to what I'm going to be talking about today. I'll be putting this in a few different series, different videos. so that you guys can watch them if you're interested in learning, and if you are from a family of witchcraft or some type of spiritual ritual family system that believes in sacrifice, energy sacrifices, magic sacrifices, blood sacrifices, voodoo families of voodoo, families from the South, families from the Caribbean, and different parts of the world, in Europe and different countries in Africa, Mexico, South America, have different philosophies and different ethnographic systems where magic is integral. We'll find this in different older ways that our ancestors lived as well. And when we talk about the people who've gone through these kind of family systems, we actually often don't realize that these problems are hidden in plain sight, because as a victim and survivor of being the scapegoat, ritual abuse, victim of magic and spiritual attack in my family, I know firsthand that the witches and warlocks that do these types of ritual and come from these family systems will not admit they're witches. Like, they won't self-identify in public like I do, and like the Wiccan community may do, or different types of witches may do. Although there's this Church of Satan and different groups of witchcraft that are out in the open. A lot of the people that belong to systems like these will, for obvious reasons, stay quiet about these talents or gifts, family talents or gifts, if you will, because they have taken on the black arts. And these types of people and these types of family systems don't know how to solve problems without black magic. And when I talk about this, I will be talking about it from how I discovered that I was married to a black witch warlock, and that my mother is also a black witch from Cuba who uses hoodoo, the black magic form of voodoo in the Caribbean. So, my real name is Laura Castellanos Dabb. I'm from Los Angeles, California. My mother is an immigrant from Cuba during the 1950s. And my father is an immigrant from Mexico. I was born in Los Angeles, Hollywood. And since I was a little girl, my mother would train me with some of her co-workers in telepathy and different psychic studies. Like, I could see ghosts, and she trained me to see more ghosts, and she told me that I was special and that I was psychic and that I was so sensitive. But at the same time, she also told me and decided that I was a very evil child, and that there was a demon inside of me, and that I needed to hold light to not be this evil child. These types of situations that I found myself in with my mother at a very young age. For example, when I was 4 years old and my brother was born, I instinctively, as a toddler, felt upset because my brother was not a girl for some reason. I don't know why, But I was very upset because I know why. I was upset that I wouldn't have any friends because I could only truly relate to a little sister, not a little brother. That's what I was thinking in my mind. And I was very candid and open about these things, and I told my mother. And I remember one time when it was around May, because there was a joint birthday between my cousin Michelle and my cousin Orlando. And I had taken this pink Barbie shoe that had been forgotten by my cousin, and I took it as like a trophy for myself. And my mother had this blue Mercedes, old blue Mercedes. And she takes me to the house and says, Laura, do you want to give your brother away? And I said, no. And she said, oh, come on. It's not that bad. Why don't we just think, you don't like him, so why don't we just give him away to a nice family down the street, and you can pick which family you want him to go to. And she insisted and insisted, and because I was 4 and she was my mother and I wanted to please her, I turned into the person I thought she wanted me to be. And that's when bad Laura, a personality my mother wanted me to become, was born. You could say she's a sacrificial personality, a saboteur. Someone that takes the blame, takes the hit, is the false perpetrator of a crime so that somebody else can get away, like a decoy, a puppet. In black magic, this is a very important part of ritual. In black magic, the most important specific type of magic they use is called destiny swapping. Destiny swapping is when you take somebody's karma, somebody's good luck, somebody's energy, and you do ritual where you begin to energetically swap their karma with yours. And as foolish as this may seem, it goes to the extreme of soul swapping, body hopping. An excellent movie to watch on this is called The Skeleton Key with Kate Hudson, which has a lot of extremely well-researched material on the topic of hoodoo and how to understand cultures that use these systems. Now, although my family comes from hoodoo, I ended up with a Mormon magician who also kept his spiritual practices a secret to me, was my husband, my ex-husband, Andrew Dabb, who was a TV writer and producer of the TV show Supernatural. Because I was so used to these types of family systems where I was lied to about their true identity, their true philosophies, their true spiritual connections, associates, and the understanding that in these systems there needs to be a sacrifice, a person that takes all the blame. And because I was born into a system that turned me into a demonic sacrifice for my mother, who is a practicing hoodoo witch from Cuba, I now understand why these things were a pattern in my life.